Good morning, card fans. I've got a morning episode today. Today with us we have Ethan Grove, or better known probably to most people as Shrub. Uh, I know Shrub from our locals in Newcastle, and Shrub's got a very unique sort of perspective on attending regionals and playing in online regionals. So could you just introduce yourself to the people, Shrub, and we'll go from there?
Yeah, well, like you said, Shrub on like the Bandai and like all of our regionals, that sort of stuff. I'm not sure how much experience I have like compared to some of the other guys, but I've had four top 64s, one top 32, and top eight. So I've done all right for someone that's sort of, like you said, a bit more remote and makes it a bit harder to practice for those sort of events. So I think I've done all right for my situation.
Yeah. It's one of the more common traits that I'm finding when I'm interviewing people is that there's a great deal of modesty involved.
Yeah.
That's an impressive record, mate, and it's not something you should be shy of telling people. It's really good.
Yeah, thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
so, uh, do you want to tell people where you actually live and explain the how it works for you getting to locals?
I live in a little town called Dungog. It's about 4 hours north of Sydney, about an hour and a half, 2 hours north of Newcastle. So it takes an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to our locals every week if I can get there with work, family, all that sort of stuff. And it's increasingly difficult to get to like regionals. I can usually only get to Sydney, but yeah, it definitely makes, as I said, it makes it quite difficult for practice and that sort of stuff. So I lean heavily onto the sim, and I've convinced a lot of friends to get webcams, and we just do like Discord sort of locals, so I don't have to travel as far all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty hard.
Yeah, so quite a unique perspective there, having to travel that fast. When you are having to travel, say, hour and a half, 2 hours to get to your local event, obviously that's limiting the amount of time you can get to those events. And so when you are playing, what the main method you mentioned there is the sim.
Yeah.
How are you getting feedback from the sim and using that to help you out?
Um, I try and I try and select the matchups that I play more times than not. So if, for instance, at the moment, Bello Betty, UP Luffy, they're all really big. So I did a lot of grinding into those decks and other things that I thought I would see at Sydney Regionals, for example. And I sort of just test myself against those decks rather than, the random Arlong or Kuro or something that you might see randomly from time to time. Like practicing against those decks, I don't think really helps preparing for those sort of events. So yeah, I really target what what I test against if I can.
Yeah. So are you playing ranked on the sim, or are you more so in that sort of just the generic lobbies, just looking for those
Uh,
leaders?
for initial testing for like deck list and that sort of stuff, I normally just grind out the open lobbies just because it's quicker. Like we mentioned, I have limited time and it takes sometimes 10 minutes for me to get a ranked game. But a few days before the event, if I feel confident in my deck list, I'll start grinding the rank sim and see how it performs. If I think some cards aren't working or I'm struggling against some matchups, I might tweak to tech towards that matchup just to make it a bit more 50-50 if I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And when you're playing in those open sim games, are you tracking that? Because we've had some people talk, and they talk about Excel spreadsheets and Google Sheets, and even using Kadi Kaizoku's like tracker
Oh,
that he
yeah.
has.
Yeah.
Are you using things like that to track how you're performing, or is it more gut instinct?
It's normally just more feeling. I have tracked it, as you know. I tracked my BY Luffy before Nats when we went to Melbourne, and I think that was one of the worst things I've ever done. I went into it feeling really strong because I had like a 70% win rating. according to my matchup spreads and what I was tracking, and I got destroyed. And I lost the first 3 rounds, I think, and it ruined my whole day. I was just in the dumps. I didn't have fun, and I just really kicked myself for raising my own expectations that much,
Yeah,
especially in a such a area where it's completely random. Like if you draw the right cards, you're gonna win every game. You don't, you don't. Like you can just draw nothing but bricks with 100% win rating and still lose. So
yeah.
going in
Uh,
thinking I was going to do well after that was a mistake.
yeah. Do you think in that regard then, you have to rely heavily on the sim? Do you do you think not having those in-person games really impacts on your ability to perform better at those bigger events then?
Yeah, I do. I think when I was able to get to our locals a lot more often, I feel like that was when I was performing better. And recently, as you know, I haven't been there for, I don't know, 2 sets or something at the moment. I just can't get there.
Yeah.
Um, so struggling to get those in-person games, to get the actual card draw rather than, whatever the rigged hands you get from the sim happen to be, um, seem to be impacting me a bit, which is why I've sort of convinced my friends to start playing on the webcam. But they've all got their pet decks, so they're not playing top meta. This purple katakuri or carrot, which I get to practice against a lot. But yeah, it doesn't. They help, but getting the top meta in person practice is where I'm struggling.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's definitely been one of the key things that people have talked about is having that close group of people that they can practice with, which for you is clearly difficult when you live in Dungog. There's not a lot of players in Dungog, so it's yeah really interesting in that regard. So how are you taking advantage then of when you do go to something that's an in-person event? How do you maximize that in any regard?
Um, yeah, in a way, I always try and do the side events like the day before, like in Sydney or whatever, just as a bit of a barometer to how well the deck is doing. If I go into the side event where people are playing their off meta decks and I still get destroyed, then there's a bit of work to be done that night. Um, but if I feel like if I lose a match and I can tell where I went wrong, and still do all right into other matchups, then I feel like I'm pretty good and pretty set up. But yeah, that's how I like to make the most of that opportunity for those in-person games rather than just going straight into the event.
Yeah. And so, as you've mentioned, getting to these in-person events is difficult. But so online events, how important are online events for you?
They are pretty well like almost my only avenue for like competitive play. I enjoy them. I think they're great. The fact that people can compete these top prizes without having to travel 4 or 5 plus hours just to get to an event is really good. I also find the being able to stay in a calmer environment really helps my gameplay. I think at the in-person events, there's noise, people get up, they start carrying on, the judges are yelling out and doing whatever. I tend to get really, I don't know, distracted or overwhelmed in certain situations, and then I make misplays, and then I sit there straight away and I go, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Where with these onlines, it's like this, it's quiet, I can focus, and I perform a lot better. It's actually the only place I've ever performed well. Every one of my top 64s and above has been an online event.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's interesting to me because I'm also quite remote. I'm a few towns across from you. So I have not played in any online events as of yet. I'm booked into playing one. Do you have any tips for me in terms of setting up a place to play in those sort of online events?
Yeah, definitely. I think you want somewhere like remote where you won't be distracted continuously. A big enough play space that your play area doesn't get messy and confusing because straight away they're going to call a judge and you could get a round loss just because the opponent's confused because you haven't set yourself enough space. So I think that's a big one. And also, I know there's a lot of discussion about online cheaters because it's easier to get away with. I record all my games just in case. I haven't needed it up until now, but it's a decent fail-safe.
Yeah.
Even if somebody accuses you of something, if, I don't know, you drop a card on the floor or they think you've done something, you have the proof to show otherwise, should a judge require it. Like I said, I
Yep.
haven't needed it, but it's there. Just sort of protect yourself in that sort of situation because it's harder to resolve issues like on the fly.
Yeah, of course. Do you let the opponent know that you're? I assume you let them know that you're recording it. Is that
Yeah, yeah,
how?
of
Yeah,
course. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess that sort of it would limit any form of cheating anyway. Even if you were going to cheat, I still don't understand why people do.
Yeah,
It's just a card game.
yeah, it's just a game. I don't get it, but
Yeah, it sort of has that in the back of their mind. Yeah, cool. And then, so that's a cool way to set yourself up there, like so you can focus. Is there anything you're doing in between the matches in on a online? Are you getting up, walking around, having something to eat? Like, how do you treat it differently in that regard?
yeah, if I think because it's more personal, I think you said in your interview with Elliot that after a game, it's really easy to go out, talk with everyone, and fall into the I did this wrong, this happened, and then you're just in that negative mind space for the next match. At home, in between your matches, you go out, you play with your kids. You're not in that mind space. You come into it sort of refreshed, I guess, and just focusing on that game rather than what what happened in the previous ones, should they have been good or bad or otherwise. Um, and because I guess the days are more compressed, there isn't as much of a lunch break as always. Like sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's half an hour. So you can't really, go over to the shop and sit
Yeah,
down with all your mates and have all this food and then come back half asleep because you've stuffed your face. So I
yeah.
feel like that sort of keeps me more aware for the future games. Just not,
Just
yeah,
stay alert.
it's more focused.
Yeah,
Stay in the zone a bit better. Yeah.
yeah. No, that's interesting. That having maintaining that alertness for that many rounds is always going to be difficult, and yeah, having lunch can really wreak havoc on people there with
Yeah, definitely.
having a big lunch and coming back with the sleepies.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
bit of a food coma, and you're like, oh, do I want to sit here
yeah.
for 6 more rounds?
Probably shouldn't have had that bucket of the Colonel's finest, but anyway, let's
Yeah.
let's move on. Um, yeah, cool. So that's really interesting way to approach it, and you've had to adapt due to location, playing more online. In terms of that bouncing ideas off each other and getting constructive feedback, how do you go about that?
As in like for after each round sort of thing.
Oh no, just in general. So when you're picking a deck and you're building that deck, and because you're isolated, I'm isolated. How are you getting the feedback from other people that you're like, I'm playing the same deck as you, but I might have a few different cards in it that really are helping me. How do you find? How are you able to discuss those things with other people? Like what
I I
strategy are you
um
using there?
I lean heavily on our locals group chat, and some of the guys in there. I discuss a lot of things with a few of the guys, and also when I can, like we hold like little locals with me and a few of the other guys that we play on Discord and stuff, and I
Yeah,
explain sort of my deck list if I think something's going on, and sort of like my rationale behind different things. And a lot of them have been playing just as long as I have, so they're able to go, oh, I do X because of Y instead of that or whatever, and a lot of the time it's better than what I'd come up with. So I just bounce it off as many people as I can. I try and test against as many different sort of decks, and just get other people's perspectives on the way that I'm playing or the way I should be doing certain things into certain matchups.
yeah,
But yeah, it's heavily sort of online and group chats,
yeah,
Discord, and also like other people's like locals runs on Twitter and that sort of stuff with their deck lists, and then I just read the discussions on what other people are doing and why, and see if I can apply that to my own gameplay and decks.
Yeah, yeah, cool. So yeah, taking that wider content that's out there as well is super
Yeah,
important for you. Yeah, watching YouTubes and deck lists and things like that are always great ways to sort of get introductions to decks as well. What else can we talk about? There's a lot going on. So how do you actually pick a deck?
um, for me, I've found recently more that it's about having fun, which is what the game's about. So if I pick up a deck and I don't enjoy it, there's no way I'm going to perform well on it. Like I tested UP Luffy, I tested GP Luffy. I don't think they're fun. I lost nearly every game because I didn't care enough to like want to do well on it because I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah,
Um, so as you know, I play yellow. I think yellow's fun. People hate me. It's funny. Yellow is the only color I've performed well with, and I think it's the most fun. So I find
I,
decks.
I think yellow cops a bad rap.
It
There's
does.
only
It
one
does.
yellow deck that people don't like. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So, but I think Vegapunk's a great deck. I enjoy playing Vegapunk.
Yeah, Vegapunk's really fun and
Yeah,
interesting. Like it's a completely different play style to almost anything else. It's
yeah,
the only non-attacking leader that is able to perform well since the game started.
yeah, yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, you're looking more in terms of fun. I know that you've done quite well with Yamato. What is it that drew you to Yamato? Yep.
Well, when I started the game, I think everyone did. They played Red Zoro, Aggression, Rush, and Yamato was kind of, like the first aggressive yellow deck. After playing Enel in set five and everyone hating me. Um, yeah, I just think it's fun. I really enjoyed that part of the story. I enjoyed the characters. I liked the abilities, and it really suited what I was enjoying out of the game at the time, and it helped me. It paid dividends in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the new starter decks have really helped that deck out a bit too.
yeah, for sure. It definitely got a power boost. It can be very touch and go. It is kind of relying at the moment on, do you have the counter or do I win? Like
Yeah.
it's straight away like turn four. If you don't have 4 2Ks in hand, you've got no life. Um, but if they do, it's really hard to come back after committing that far.
Yeah. It lives and
Which is
dies by the sword.
it. Yeah, it's a double edged sword for sure, but it's
Yeah.
still fun. It's still
Yeah.
fun.
It leads me to an angle of talking. I haven't spoken about this with anyone else, but the starter decks were the first example of when we got uh, some cards before the Eastern meta. And with, I think, when is it, mid next year that we go to a global release?
Yeah, I think it's around April, the same time as um, the cycle.
Yeah, 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 I think so. Yeah, yeah. How how are you looking forward to that? Is that something that you're excited about? Can you touch a bit on that and how you think that will impact you in the future?
Yeah, definitely. I think as someone who plays predominantly like 50-50 off meta decks, like I don't really attract towards, the best new flashy deck or whatever. I think once we go to global release and there isn't a planned out best deck in format, planned out meta that we're getting from Japan, it's really going to open the door for all of those sort of off meta decks that no one's expecting um, to perform well just because no one's like, you might see a deck that's come out and it looks really strong, but no one's thought about, for example, how well Bello Betty's going to do into it. So I think it's really going to open the door and make the game a lot more enjoyable for a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot more. I think there'll be a lot more counter meta surprises when the rotation and global release comes in.
Yeah, yeah, for
And
sure.
I think for me, um, people that have a really in-depth knowledge of cards, that will really help them.
Yeah,
Rotation will limit that to an extent because like you don't want to pick up like, imagine you pick up OP20 and someone busts out like a OP1 card and it's like, oh,
Yeah. So,
didn't
well,
know
what's
this.
that? I started last week. I don't know what that does. Yeah.
So I think rotation's going to be good, and the global release I think will be
Yeah.
wonderful.
I am looking forward to
Uh,
rotation.
yeah, yeah, I'm
I
looking
think it
forward to that
like
personally as well.
there's a lot of cards at the moment that are limiting deck building the same way sort of Moria did. For
Yeah,
example, sorry, but ACOS Kid. Like if you're playing a green deck, you're running ACOS Kid outside
yeah,
of Yamato. Which I hate that card, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. We don't have many good cards green, but I would say that's that and Hody are
yeah,
very
Hody
good
Jazz,
cards.
man. Yeah,
But it yeah, it dictates how other people play, which
yeah,
that's what green sort of does, especially Bonnie. It's like I'm dictating how we play once we get
yeah.
past a certain point. But
You need to play differently now. Good luck.
yeah, yeah. Oh no, Bonnie will still be there in the next rotation, but Kid won't.
Yeah,
So,
yes.
yeah, cool. I think this has been quite an insightful chat. You have some socials or anything like that that you'd like to put out there?
Yeah, I've recently started a Twitter, which is just Shrub TCG, I think. I've also been putting some like sim gameplay on YouTube under the same name.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's pretty well it.
Yeah, nice. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? Is there any sort of tips, advice you'd like to give people just starting, coming through, and I think maybe more regional people and thinking, how can I get involved? I don't have a locals, I don't have a local game shop or anything like that. So what
Yeah,
advice would you
yeah.
have to those people to get involved in the game?
Definitely convince your fans to play. Like show them how fun the game is, convince them to play, and bounce your ideas off them. That's a massive help. And play decks that you enjoy. Like if you're not having fun, then the game's not fun, and you're not going to do well. I don't think. Yeah, even if you lose playing the deck that you love, at least you had fun.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't think we can leave without mentioning your background there either. That
Yeah,
is quite impressive.
yeah.
Quite the
It
game
was
studio you got going on there.
yeah, that was sort of pre card collecting, and it got out of hand very quickly. So I've recently stopped because I have no more room in this house.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I just think they look cool.
yeah. No, that
That's
is.
pretty well it. Yeah, it's just
When I first saw it, I thought that was a generated background, but no, they're real.
yeah, no, they're real. Yeah, each one has cost me actual money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, leading on from that collecting, are you a manga anime or was it the cards that got you into One Piece?
It was the anime. I watched the anime when I was a kid. When it was on Cheese TV or whatever it was. I borrowed DVDs from my friends that owned it and watched all the way up to
You got to be careful
Whole
because
Cake
when you
Island
talk
or
about
something.
cheese TV and DVDs, the youth won't
Yeah,
know what you're talking about.
yeah, exactly. It's been a long road. I fell off for a little bit. I come back. I've bought all the manga. I've read through all of that. I'm now up to date. Every week I read the new chapter, and it was the story that got me into the cards. Like I've always been a collector, as you can see. I collected Pokemon cards, and I just got tired of opening cards and then taking the good ones and not doing anything with the rest of them,
Yep.
which drew me into the One Piece game. I wanted to, collect cards and be able to use the commons, the uncommons that no one really cares about, which yeah, sort of brought me to where I am.
Awesome. That's well, thanks for your time today. It's been really insightful for someone like myself who's also a little bit regional. And I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that want to play the game, but they're a bit like, oh, I can't get to a locals, I can't get to this. But yeah, there's plenty of avenues
Yeah,
for
for
people
sure.
to approach.
Yeah,
Awesome. All
awesome.
right.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for being on. I've really, really enjoyed this chat. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Cheers.